Hello and welcome to this tutorial. Today we will be focusing on the policy and procedure component in SQSS. So currently we are on the MyQCs list of the system. This is the default home page when you log into the system. So when we're talking about the policy and procedure component, there are two options in the navigational toolbar that are important. We have the procedure library here at the top of this navigational toolbar, and then down towards the bottom there's the documents area, which contains the PMP management area and the extra document management tool. So let's cover the procedure library first. If we click into there, this is the area that the staff will access all of the procedures for the system. So when they need to access any type of procedure, they can come to this area. It will show them the list of their procedures here, but there are quick sort features or search features in this area. So if you type a word into here and click enter or search, that will find any document that has that word in the name or in the actual procedure itself. So that's what this search feature is here. And then the department and the functions filters are just additional filters that you can use to try to locate your procedure. So if you click department here and then click search, that would pull up any procedures that were tagged to that department when they were created. And the same with the function. So if you're looking for a procedure that has to do with employee health, but you don't know what it's called, you can filter by the overall employee health function, and that will look for any procedure that was linked to the employee health function when it was added to the system. You'll notice at the top here, we have a couple of additional things that we're seeing. So this right here, frontline staff will not see this option. This is specific to people that are involved in a review process for a procedure that's actually under review right now. So you can see I have two of them that I'm involved in. The favorites area, every user when they log in, they can customize their favorites. So from my sample Mary Smith account, I have this allergy information and alerts procedure tagged as a favorite to me. It will continue to stay up here in my favorites area until I remove it. So it's pretty easy to add options to your favorites. So let's say that I want to add the do not use list to my favorites. When I click on that procedure, it'll open it up and there's a star in the upper right hand corner. I can click on that and this will now show in my favorites. When we're in a procedure, to explain what we see here, I'm seeing the edit option because I am an admin and I can see that. Frontline staff obviously will not have access to edit this, and then anybody that's not involved as an overall creator or admin of a procedure cannot edit the procedure. The Create Just Do It option is something that all staff members have access to. It was put in here and designed to give the staff a way to ask a question if they think that there's inaccurate information in the procedure, or if it's got typos, or there's something that they think is not right, or they have a question on. They can create a Just Do It and submit a question to somebody about this particular procedure. And of course, the archive option is something that only admins see as well. You can always print your procedure if you need to. So it has a print option. You'll notice I have my banner for my sample hospital or for strategic quality support system up on the top of this. You can customize your banner for your system. And then the basic information. And we do have the procedure listed first in our format, and then down below is where the policy information shows. That is the specific design of our format. We designed it that way because typically when a staff member is coming in for a procedure, they need the information from the particular procedure. They don't need the policy information. So we put the most important information at the top, and then the additional policy information is listed at the bottom. So then I'm going to go back to my library. So now you can see in my favorites, my do not use list has been added there. Okay, so let's go down to the PMP management area. So the PMP management section, this is where the policies and procedures are built into the system. So just to talk about what we're seeing here, this current screen, when you go straight to PMP management, is my list of policies for my organization. One of the big things that we wanted to focus on when we built this component of the system is to reduce the amount of duplication and just the amount of extra work that goes into policy and procedure review. So when we started working with this section of the system, we wanted to first address the cleanup of the policies themselves. A lot of facilities, when they create a new procedure, they immediately create a new policy to link to that procedure. And I think that comes from the idea that every procedure has to be linked to a policy. But that requirement doesn't mean you have to create a new policy every time you create a procedure. It just means that the procedure that you're creating has to link back to one of your organizational policies. So one of the things that we've worked on with our hospitals is to try to clean up the number of policies that you have. So a lot of the facilities have been able to reduce the number of overall organizational policies down to a dozen, maybe 24 policies. Here you can see this list of policies here pretty much covers every area of an organization or a hospital that you would have to have a policy for. And when you think about policies, you should think about it from the standpoint of what is the overall organizational stance on employee conduct? What do we expect from our employees from the conduct perspective? So if I click on my employee conduct policy, this is the overall organization's stance on employee conduct. So then as you're adding procedures that involve employee conduct, you just add them to here no matter what department you are from. And then the same with patient care. What's the organization's expectation when it comes to patient care? So here is my patient care policy, and then down below you can see I'm starting to develop a list of patient care procedures that are linked to this. So if I go back to my main P&P management screen, the idea is the organization develops their organizational policies. We have a sample list of organizational policies. Let me know if you'd like to get a copy of that. I'm happy to send it to you. Once you develop your organizational policies, the policy admins add them to the system. So then once the policies are added to the system, managers can come in here and add their procedures to any policy that's listed. The design of this is to help keep your policy list refined and clean so that everybody and anybody's not just adding policies all over the place to this section of the system, because that's what contributes to it getting really cluttered and long. So to add a policy to the system from an admin perspective, there's an option at the top here for new policy. You can name your policy. If you already have it typed up in Word or Excel or a copy-pastable PDF format, you can just copy-paste it in here. You'll notice that there are options for customizing. You can embed hyperlinks into the policy as well. So if you want to highlight text and embed a link to another website for reference material, you can do that. You have an original creation date. The system will differentiate between the original creation date that you list here, so when was it developed by your organization, versus the date you add it to SQSS. And then you can attach files to the system. There's a couple of different options here. The original way that documents have always been added to the system is to upload it as a standalone file that's only linked to this policy. These other two options here allow you to link documents that have already been uploaded to the document management section to this policy. And then there is an option for a review process. Now you can see that I can deselect it to not do a review versus keep it selected to do that review process. The only reason that I would not do a review in here is if the policy has already been approved and you're simply copy pasting it, adding it to here to get it into the system. However, if you would like to go through that review process because you're at that point that it needs to be reviewed, the first thing is to just select the home department for this policy. Typically, most policies belong to administration. I've seen some facilities set it up a little bit differently and link them to different departments, so that's why you have all options here, but just pick the home department for the policy itself, and then you can select your review process. So with the review process, whether we're talking about a policy or when we go in to create a procedure, it's the same. So who is the first person that should review this policy? So pick them. So then who is the second person that should review this policy? And then you can list everybody out that should do an individual review of this policy. Then you'll notice Mary Smith is hard-coded as the final editor for the review process before it goes to committee. we are in Mary Smith's account creating this policy right now. So whoever creates the policy or the procedure, whatever you're creating, that person that creates it is the final reviewer after the individual reviews happen and then after the committee does their review. So then what committee do you want to send this to? So you pick your committee here. If you need to send it to more than one committee, you can select to send it to as many committees as you need to. So in this example, maybe we would send it to one, and then you'll notice it's going to come back to Mary Smith to do that final review. This is a tiered process. So once a policy or a procedure gets saved, in this example, it would go to Larry Smith first. He would do his review. They are timed. You can specify for your setup how long you want to give each individual to do a review. So in my setup, it's 7 days. Larry has 7 days to do his review. And if he gets his review done, it would immediately move to Heather Huffey. So if he gets it done on day 2, it's going to immediately go to Heather Huffey on day 2. She will then have 7 days, and then it would move to Mary Smith. However, in the example that Larry does not do his review within the 7 days, Mary, as the creator of this policy, would get an email notification letting her know that, but it is not going to hold up the process. Heather Huffey would be notified that she needs to do a review, so it would keep moving through the review process until it gets to Mary Smith, and then Mary Smith is responsible for reactivating the reviews for anybody that doesn't do the review on the procedure or the policy that needs to do that review to keep that process in line with your compliance for a policy and procedure review. The only difference from the timeline that you set on how quickly policy and procedures should be reviewed is the committee setting. Committees don't meet, obviously, in my example, every 7 days. So you can't have a policy or a procedure due in 7 days for a committee. So the policy and procedure reviews will stay up for the committee chair for a quarter. So it's trying to compensate for those committees that meet every month versus every quarter. And then you just click to create the policy. And as soon as you click create policy, it would activate that review process. We're going to actually create a procedure and go through the review process. So we're going to look at that here in just a second. So that's all that goes into adding a policy to the system. And the nice part about this is if you have them in Word, Excel, or a copy-pastable PDF form, everything can be copy-pasted over. We do not have this set up as a mass upload for a very specific reason. Because we're trying to reduce the amount of duplication that we see in the organizations, when you're initially loading them to SQSS, we want you to do a cleanup of those policies and procedures to make sure you're not just adding the same duplication to SQSS that you have in your current process now. So we're going to go in and we're going to add a new procedure to the protection of confidential information. So I'm going to click on that policy here. And remember, so now that we're going to add a procedure to the system, managers can add procedures for their departments, admins can add procedures, and then you can set other individuals up to have access to add procedures if that's appropriate. So when I clicked on this policy, it took me into the summary of the policy, and then we can see that there's an option for new procedure. Just to show you a couple of things that you're going to see here, I can edit the policy because I'm an admin. I can ask a question if I have one. There's also an archive option from the admin perspective. What we're also going to see here, and this happens for both procedures and policies, you can automate review processes for policies and procedures in the system through the task side of the system. So I could basically create a task and schedule it to happen annually to notify Mary Smith that she has to do the annual review of this policy. That task links directly to the policy so that it'll show up here in the summary. You can also see there has been 4 revisions of this policy, so I can access all of my revised versions of this policy historically. It'll store in the system, and we have a print option. So down below, you can see for this organization, so far they've added 1 procedure to this policy, and it's for filing a HIPAA complaint. So we're going to go ahead and add a new procedure here. I have my procedure already in Word. So I'm basically going to go ahead and split my screen real quick so that we can look at this from the perspective of copying and pasting it over. So again, I'm just going to click on Actions here and add a new procedure. Okay, so here's my procedure screen. So we're going to walk through and actually create this. So what is the name of the procedure? I'm just going to copy and paste it in here. And then what function does this link back to? So if you're familiar with SQSS, the function feature exists in every component of SQSS. This is not looking for a departmental type of linking. This is looking for an overall perspective of why does the organization have to create this procedure? What is its overall purpose? So is it for an employee health reason? Is it for patient safety, environmental safety? So in this example, I'm going to link this back to HIPAA compliance. That is the overall reason that we're putting this into the system. And then who is the owner of this procedure? Who's creating it? If it's the DON creating a procedure, you would probably link it as the owner back to nursing. Or if it's specific to lab, you can link it to lab. So this is just the overall owner of this procedure. So who are we going to assign this back to? For this example, I'm going to assign it to my IT department. You could really assign it based on however you feel is appropriate for your organization. And then for partnering departments. So obviously, if we're trying to get rid of duplication, we need to be able to assign this to multiple departments. So the one thing to remember is no matter what department you link this procedure to, everybody has access to it. So where we linked it to the information technology, and then whatever departments we select for the partnering departments, let me pull up this procedure library here so we can link it. That tells you that when somebody's doing a search, whatever department they select here links back to whatever was selected for the partnering department or the overall department. So if your department for nursing was selected here, when you go do a nursing filter in the library, that procedure is going to show up. So this just helps with sorting and filtering and all of that good stuff. So there is a select all option. If this is a procedure that you want to show, no matter what department is filtering for their department filter in the library, you can just select all of them. So you have that option there. In this example, I don't want all of these, so I'm going to remove them real quick. So for the standard, if you want to link this to a Joint Commission, DMB, CMS, HFAPS condition standard, and you have the standard number, you can put your standard in here so that you can just link it back to that. It's really just a reference point. And then this description is where the actual procedure goes. You should copy and paste the procedure in there. So just copy it and paste it in there. So you'll notice if I go up here, the spacing is pretty much the same. There's still bolding in here. It tries to mimic whatever you have in your physical document currently. So it's trying to mimic all that formatting to save you time. So you don't have to do a lot of formatting on it. Every once in a while, there will be things you have to tweak, but for the most part, it does a pretty good job of mimicking that formatting. If you want to preview it, you can click View Preview. Here's a preview of it. And then if we scroll down, we also have the original creation date. We can attach documents here like we talked about before. And then if we scroll down a little farther, we have the review process. So in this example, I am actually going to send it through a short review process so we can see what that looks like. I'm going to first assign it to Heather Huffey, then it's going to come back to Mary Smith. You can, of course, add more reviewers if you want to, but just to save time on this training, we're going to do just 2. And then for my committee, I'm going to assign it to the PMP committee, and then, of course, it's going to come back to Mary Smith. You'll notice that there's a save draft option. That's on the procedures when you're creating a new procedure. Because a lot of times the procedures are a longer process to get them in here, you can save it as a draft, go do something else, and then come back and edit it and finish out your procedure before it goes to the review process. There is that check mark there that I just want to point out. So if this has already been approved and it's been agreed on that it does not need to go through review when it's added to SQSS, you can deselect that option. Just keep in mind that based on your requirements, you need to make sure that it's appropriate, that it doesn't go through the review process if that's what you want to do with this. So I'm going to go ahead and click Create Procedure. Once I do that, this is in the system as a procedure, but it's not in the procedure library yet. It will not show in the procedure library until this has gone through the full approval process. So we have this procedure. You can see that it says it's under review. It basically shows you all of the criteria for it. And here are all the details as far as the policy that is linked to. And then if we go down a little farther, here is the review process that it's assigned to. So we're going to go look at this from Heather Huffey's perspective, and we're going to kind of move through the process based on each user that we have here until it's totally pushed through and in the procedure library. So let me switch accounts here. Okay, so we're on Heather Huffey's MyQCs list, and I can probably make this a little bigger now that we're done with that Word document for that procedure. You can see at the top here that I am showing as Heather Huffey, and we can see down below on her MyQCs list that she has a procedure to do. It does tie right into the MyQCs list just like a task would. We tried to use that same functionality that already existed so that it was the most seamless as possible to get users trained on it. So for this procedure, I can click on Go to Review. It will show my entire procedure here. So here's my procedure, and as a reviewer, I can see all the details for it and the process that it's going to go through for review. So for Heather Huffey, she can click Start Review from the bottom here, or she can click Start Review at the top. For just informational purposes, as you go through this review process, so let's say that we had another reviewer in here between Heather and Mary. So let's say Judy had to do this review process too before it comes to Mary for the final edits. Once Heather does her review process, when Judy comes in to do her review process, Judy would be able to see from here a button to click on to view what Heather Huffey commented already. So reviewers can come down here and look at other comments before they do any of their documentation on their review. So if we go to start this review, I'm just going to click Start Review. And this is where you can make all of your edits and your comments. So for example, if we wanted to take out certain language in here, or let's say hypothetically that we wanted to change this to say first and last names, we can highlight it, and then you'll notice it shows a little pencil. I can click on that and put in here change to first and last names, and then click save. So now you can see that it's highlighted in yellow, and when I hover over it, it shows what the notes were that were typed in. So then if I scroll down, I can make any other recommendations. If I have additional comments or remarks that I want to make, like if something's missing from the procedure, I can document it in my review remarks. Otherwise, if you're requesting changes, click the radio button for requested changes. This adds an additional flag so that the final reviewer doesn't have to look at each individual comment summary. They can see from the flag that yes, changes were requested, so they know to make sure to look at that review. So then I can click Submit Review. So now Heather Huffey's review is done, and if I scroll down, you can see that Heather's is done, and it's now on Mary Smith, and she's active, and it's giving Mary Smith till May 19th to complete this review. So now let's switch back over to Mary's perspective so we can look at hers. Okay, so from Mary's perspective, on her MyQCs list, she will have a review process on her MyQCs list. We can see it here. If I click to go to review, it's the same thing. So here is the procedure. And then if I scroll down, additional details, and you can see now that she can click view remarks, and she could look down through here to see what was commented by Heather Huffey. Now, because she is that overall person that created it and does all of the final edits based on the review comments, she doesn't technically have to scroll down to look there. When she clicks Start Editor's Review, it'll show anybody who's done a review so far, and you'll notice here that that's that flag that says changes were requested. So she can click on that and look at what information was put in here. I can see from the names it's highlighted, so I can just hover over it to see what she suggested here. So now if I scroll down, here is the actual procedure edit options, so I can make the changes based on what was recommended. And then if I want to make any more comments, I can here. I can make any other adjustments that are appropriate or that were recommended, and then click Revise Procedure. So now this is going to go to the committee chair. So now it's up to the PMP committee to do this review. So it would go to the committee chair on the MyQCs list, you can see for this sample, just to save time on this training, I do have it assigned to Mary to just kind of work through this process. So the committee can do their review. If they don't see anything wrong with it, they can just click submit. They can put a comment in here if they want that everything looks fine. So then once they do their review, it comes back to Mary. You can see it's highlighted as a final review. This is it. Once she completes this review, it will be in the procedure library. So no comments were made, no changes were requested, so I can just finalize that procedure. And now this is published to the procedure library and it is an active procedure. You'll notice once it goes to that final review process, there is a link here. It's a quick link to try to get you to do it right away to create a review task. So I can create a review task from here, but anytime you come in to look at a procedure, if you have access to create tasks for this type of stuff, there will be hyperlinks at the bottom in the details area for add review tasks. So I want to talk about that for a minute because this is a big part of keeping your policies and procedures cleaned up. So if I click on create a review task, you'll notice that the name is pre-filled with review new finalized procedure, and it tells you what the procedure identifier is on it. And then if we look down a little bit farther, here's the physical procedure hyperlink and the procedure name. So that is going to embed it on the MyQCs list when the task shows up for review. So you can do reviews in a couple of different ways. So I'm just going to fill this out as no, it doesn't contain patient identifiable information, and I'm going to walk through creating the task. So let's say that we're creating an annual task for Mary Smith to do the annual review of this procedure. So we want her review to happen next year, and we're just going to say by the end of May because it was created in May by 5 p.m. And we're going to give her a 1-month reminder so that she has plenty of time to do the review and she has no reason to not be able to complete that procedure review. I'm going to schedule an email reminder on that. I'm going to assign it to Information Technology and Mary Smith. And if you have a backup person that would do this review, you can pick that person. And we do recommend having backups if at all possible. And then what function is this assigned to for the task? So this is a policy and procedure review. So you probably could assign this as a corporate compliance type of function to make sure these reviews are happening. But again, if you have a different functional linking for your policy and procedure reviews, you can change your function to what's appropriate. And then who is the validator on this? So you would select the applicable validator for policy and procedure review. And I would just sync it to the same as task due date. Policy and procedure reviews don't happen very often, so you can validate it when it's due for the user that's supposed to do it. So I'm going to click proceed and save this. So the annual policy and procedure review is done. It's scheduled for that procedure. It will always happen every year. So now you'll always have that automated notice. So I'm in my library here and I just filtered to what I created to today. So here is that annual review that will always happen. So now you can show on survey by pulling a report of your annual reviews that all of your procedures are being reviewed. They're being reviewed on time like they should. So that is an example of an annual review task. But let's say in this example that this is a brand new procedure and you have to have everybody in the organization read the procedure and you have to show that they read the procedure. We can use the task setting through this and do a mass assignment to get it to everybody's MyQCs list and make it quick and painless to get it distributed. And then you'll have your reporting side to do your documentation and reporting to show that they all marked off that they read it. So let's talk about it from that perspective. So you technically could just duplicate this task that you've already created. You can also go to your procedure library and we could go into the policy. Here's the one that we just created. And from here, we can scroll down and just click to add another review task. But before we do that, you'll notice here's the one we just created. It's hard-coded and linked to this procedure. So anytime you come in here, you'll start to see the list of tasks that are associated with this procedure. So let's do the new procedure review for all staff now. So we're going to click on Add Review Task. And if you want to, you could copy the name of it and put it right in the task name if you want to. That's a preference thing. So then if I scroll down here, again, I'm going to just go through this process. I'm going to build this as a once task, and I'm going to assign this. I want everybody to review it by the end of the month. That will give them about 2 weeks to do it by 5 p.m. And I'm going to start this now. So as soon as I create the tasks, it'll immediately show up on the MyQCs list. Of course, you can give them a grace period past the 31st if you want to. So if we want to give them a few extra days, you can do that. So then we're going to proceed. And if you've ever worked with the mass assignment feature, you will know that this first task we create is the template that we're then going to take and mass duplicate to everybody that we want to assign it to. So for this example, I am just going to assign it to Mary Smith, back to my sample user that we're in, so that the system can then just take this and mass replicate it for everybody that has to do this. So I'm just going to move through the rest of this wizard. And again, we're just going to assign it to corporate compliance. I am going to skip the validation on this. We are going to take this task and assign it to 100 people, maybe 200 people. If you have 400 people that have to review this, you're not going to want to click to validate each individual task one by one by one. You can very easily pull an overall validation report and then reactivate if you need to from the reporting side. So in an effort to make it more efficient for the validations on these tasks where you're going to mass assign it to lots and lots of people, I don't typically recommend doing a physical manual validation on every single individual task. So then I'm going to click proceed and save it. In my task library, here's the initial annual one that we created. And then if I scroll down, here's the one-time one that we just created. So now we just got to get it mass assigned to everybody. So to do that, I'm just going to click on the brown history book here in the actions column. And up at the top of the screen under actions, there's an option for assign to multiple users. So of course, if you're part of a network and you have access to multiple hospitals, you can mass assign this to another hospital, but we're just going to assign it right to the same hospital we're in. If you're not part of a network, you don't even have to worry about that extra click. It'll just take you right into the screen we're seeing now. So we can see that we're mass assigning the policy and procedure review for the created de-identified information procedure, and it's due May 31st. You can change this before you mass assign it. So here's the screen that lists every department built in my profile. If it's just everybody, you can click this check all button. It'll pick everybody once that's listed in your profile and that's active. If you need all managers, there's manager buttons, there's provider admin buttons. If you want to look at every department, you can click show all to see who it's picked. You'll notice Mary's not picked down here, Lisa's not picked, neither is Tom, and that's because they were picked in a different department. So if you're listed in 5 departments, you're still only going to be picked once. So once you have the correct people selected, just click assign. So for my sample department, I have 49 users, so it's assigning it to all of them. So I clicked submit, and this is just trying to get you to understand that you are going to take that task and we are now creating 49 of them. So click confirm if that's correct. And now it's processing this. So once this says completed, that task will be active for 49 different people. It's going to create 49 different tasks for us. It usually takes 30 seconds, maybe 60 seconds, and it's done. If you ever get going on this process and you realize I forgot to do something on the task, but I already mass assigned it out, once they are completed, which we can see it just completed, there will be a retract assignments option here for 7 days after it's created. So you have 7 days to pull this task back. If you click retract, that will pull all of those mass assigned tasks back. It basically removes them. You can fix your overall task and then remass assign it. So if I go to my task library here and I look at what I've created today, that's what I'm filtered to, and scroll down, you can now see that I have a review task for the creating de-identified information for every single user in my system. And you'll notice it puts the user's name right in the task name for you, so you can tell from the reports who it is that didn't do their task, if that's what you're looking for, from the task name. It assigned it to their department. Everybody has the same due date, so everybody will have to do this review. So now I'm just going to copy part of the task name here, and we're going to go over and look at this from the reporting side so you can see what this is going to start to look like. So whether you go to task overview or you go to task compliances, that's the two reports that I would recommend using for something like this. For this example, I went to task overview. I'm going to click May of 2021, and I'm going to put part of the task name in there, and I'm just going to click filter. So now that I clicked filter, we can see there's 50 tasks. There was the initial one we created for Mary Smith as the template, and then the 49 other tasks that we created for everybody else to do their review. So we can see it's yellow. That box means it's active on everybody's list right now. So now, as everybody starts to complete these, the boxes will start to turn green to say that people are marking off that they did their review. So this would be a good report for you to show if a surveyor ever says, well, how do you know that the staff know what they're supposed to do in this procedure? You can pull this report and say, we did a overall review where everybody had to document and verify that they read the procedure and they understood it. So that's an example of how you can mass assign a task out for everybody to do a procedure review. So a couple of last housekeeping type stuff for the policy and procedure management area is just basic settings for your organization. So I'm going to go to provider in the navigational toolbar. So for the policy and procedure admins, there are 4 of them by default. You can see the policy directors. I only have 2 listed, but you can have up to 4. So anybody that's listed here, when they come to provider, they will have an option for policies and procedures right here in this greenish area. So the policy settings allows you to identify who the overall admins are for policy and procedure management, and what is your review time frame or your review criteria that you want to assign for your organization. If you'll remember, I had mine set to 7 days. So if you have a different time frame that you have to meet, you can set your review criteria here. You can also add additional committees here, and then the export option. This is really important. So technology is wonderful until it doesn't work. If the internet's down, how are you going to access your procedures? So that's what makes this so important, is you still have to have access to those procedures. So when this component is activated in your organization, the system requires you to identify a person that will be notified via a task once a month to remind them to do an updated export of the procedures and then save it to an internal drive in your organization, some kind of shared drive, so that if the internet's down, you still have access to your procedures. So that's what this option is here. So then if we go back to provider, for the report settings under policy and procedures here, this is where you can adjust your hospital name if you want it to show differently at the top of your procedures and policies when you print them. And then if you want to adjust your image that shows on your policies and procedures when you print them, you can upload an image here. Now, the final thing I want to point out is this public procedures library. So some organizations requested a way to access the procedure library from SQSS without the users having to log in. So that's what this is. So if you don't see this option here with the ability to click embed this link, you have to click edit at the top of your profile and enable the policies and procedures public link. If it's not enabled, you will not have a link to use. But once you enable it, the system will give you a custom link to your procedure library. So if I copy that and then click update, that is the link that I can use to put on my internal drive or my employee portal so that staff can access our procedure library without having to log in. So basically, if I go ahead and log out now, I have no access to SQSS right now. I can paste that link into the URL area and hit enter, and here is my sample hospital procedure library. I do not have to log in, so you can take that link, put it on your employee portal, and staff would have access to your procedure library without having to log in. It's an optional feature. If you don't want to use it, you don't have to enable it, but it is there as an option for you. So I do want to just show you the help stuff real quick. inside SQSS, if we scroll down and go to help in the navigational toolbar, this is where the help center is. There is an option for policy and procedure management. If you go into there, there are different PDFs to help you. Creating a policy, editing a policy, creating a procedure, and editing a procedure. Couple of tips for creating good policies and procedures. This accessing procedures in SQSS is actually a video. It's short, it's 3 minutes, and this will walk your staff through how to access the procedures from the library. So it's a good way to get them trained on accessing the procedures. And then conducting a review is a help document that walks you through the entire review process for that section of the system. Of course, if you have additional questions or you'd like to go over any information based on the policy and procedure component, you are more than welcome to contact me. My contact information is listed at the bottom of every screen under Contact Us, and that will get you my phone number and my email address, and I'm happy to help you with any questions you have based on getting any component of SQSS up and going in your organization. So please keep that in mind. But for today, that's as far as we're going to go with the training session. I hope you found this helpful, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.